you. Senator Barrasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome back. I'd like to follow up on some things that I asked of you during the confirmation process. And the first is Nord Stream 2, the pipeline. There is strong bipartisan opposition on this committee and throughout the entire Senate to President Biden's deliberate failure to sanction all of the entities that are involved in the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Protecting this Russian trap is not in the U.S. national security interest. It is a grave mistake. The pipeline threatens the energy security of our friends as well as our allies. We know that Russia uses energy as a geopolitical weapon to coerce, to manipulate. I know you've agreed to that during our confirmation hearing. And it does seem that President Biden is now allowing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to be added to Russia's energy arsenal. So Putin has said essentially the same thing. On Friday, he stated that Ukraine must now show goodwill if it wants Russian gas transiting through the country to continue. He said that Russia is going to further threaten to cut gas to Ukraine. They've done that over the Donbass conflict. This is even before Nord Stream 2 has been completed. So I think it's really critical that we act now. I think we have a misguided policy right now coming from your boss, the president. I think it's in our national security to impose sanctions on Nord Stream 2 now. Why is it not in our national security to impose those sanctions?
If the sanctions could, in our judgment, have been effective in actually stopping the physical completion of the pipeline, that would have been one thing. In our judgment, they would not have had that effect. We did, as you know, on May 19th, sanction more entities than have ever been sanctioned under the PISA legislation. But as you know as well, the pipeline construction began in 2018. By the time we took office, it was more than 90% complete. And as we looked at this, it became clear to us that the actual joining of those last pipes was not going to be stopped by sanctioning the overall entity Nord Stream 2 AG or the CEO. Having said that, two things are very important. One, the waiver that we issued can be rescinded at any time. Second, what has to happen, there are two things that have to happen, and they are, I think, happening. Germany is coming to the table to talk about steps that would need to be taken if anything starts to flow through this pipeline to make sure that any damage done to Ukraine, in fact, is not done, is undone. And that, as we discussed a little bit earlier, involves several things. It involves making sure that Ukraine is whole when it comes to any transit fees that it might lose as a result of the pipeline actually going into operation. Second, ensuring that gas, or oil for that matter, can't be used as a weapon of coercion, but blackmail by Russia, and there are means to do that. Third, to make sure that countries are acting upfront when Russia acts out to respond. I'd also point out that when it comes to the operation of the pipeline, there are very significant remaining factors that have to be taken into account. Insurance, permitting. We're looking very hard at those entities as well. So we need to see, going forward, what we can put in place to prevent, mitigate, undo any damage that would be done if the pipeline actually begins operations. But as a very practical matter, when it came to the last few meters of this pipeline, it was our judgment that sanctioning that entity would not have had any effect. And the worst of all worlds would be a combination of pipeline physically completed, relationship with Germany poisoned, and no incentive for Germany to actually come to the table to engage in trying to mitigate the damage that could be done by the pipeline actually operating.
Yeah, I would just point out, Mr. Secretary, that during your confirmation process, because you just talked about the last few meters, you reiterated your opposition to the Nord Stream 2, and you said, quote, "I am determined to do whatever we can to prevent that completion the last 100 yards." So the fact that it was 90% complete when you came into office and the administration came into office, your commitment to us was the last 100 yards.